Well, man, I'm with my old pal, author, Reverend. You know, when you came out with this book, Matt Smallbone, The Prayer Experiment, #1 best-selling book on prayer on Amazon as we sit here right now. This is amazing.
Yeah.
New release.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One time, and we've been buddies a long time, and one time I got a promotion at my job.
Yeah.
You remember what you said to me? You said to me,
Was it inspiring?
kind of. You said, "Congratulations, do they know you're an idiot?" So whenever you have
friends since our 20s.
That's right.
Yeah.
So whenever you have, it was like kind of like, yeah, that's the real me. When your buddy does something that's extraordinary, and I do love cheering you on, but there's a sense I'm like, do people know Matt's an idiot? And he wrote this book. It's not true though. Let me disclaimer it. You wrote this book out of personal need.
Yeah.
I wanted to have you on the podcast because in the last 4 years, I've been in a lot of 12-step meetings. In the Lord's Prayer, we pray almost every meeting. You got the Serenity Prayer, right. Lord's Prayer. Sometimes we just go through it. And I was curious, even in my own life. I mean, I've never really stopped and broken it down like you have.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. Where did this book come from?
Yeah, so I'm a pastor, and so a big part of my life is writing sermons. And as you'd remember, man, there are some series where you have some mastery over the topic at hand, and there are others where you're just swimming a bit. And we were starting 2025 with 21 days of prayer and fasting and a 7-week series called Lord Teach Us to Pray. And I was on the and so I was going to be leading my young congregation in downtown Nashville through the Lord's Prayer, breaking it down kind of one movement at a time. There's 6 movements in the Lord's Prayer, and thought we'd do an intro week as well. So come January 1, as we're getting ready to write that first Sunday's talk, I'm feeling lots of imposter syndrome, because the truth is I've loved Jesus for a very long time, but I've never felt very good at prayer. Like I've been more drawn to the study, more drawn to the, being able to think about things of God, but actual, for various reasons, one of them being personality, another one being some kind of undercooked theological ideas. Like I just never really prayed very much. I've never been the guy who can get up consistently at 4 a.m. and I've been kind of jealous of those dudes, and they seem to float away from that. And I was never able to do that. I'd try for 3 days and I'd give up in despair. And so personality-wise, the idea of a silent retreat for me is just misery, And I'm like, oh man, maybe that's for people who aren't wired like me. This intimate prayer life was part of it. And then this theological idea called the sovereignty of God, which is basically this thought that God is all-knowing and will do whatever he wants whenever he wants. I'm like, well, why am I going to bother spending time in that scenario?
I struggle there too.
Yeah. So and then we had a miscarriage. There was an unanswered prayer part of it, which really I prayed quite well in my 20s. Teenagers, 20s. I was a pretty good.
When you
prayer.
say quite well, what does that mean?
I mean, like enjoyed it, was and would do it.
It was a spiritual discipline of yours.
Yeah,
in your 20s.
Fair bit. Yeah, and I felt close with God when I would do it. But after we miscarried a baby in our 30s, I really stopped praying for the longest time, and then would just be really haphazard since then. And then, you become a lead pastor and people hand you a microphone and you start praying in front of rooms. And so anyway, there's a lot of imposter syndrome going into this series. And I was teaching it, and the phrase that stood out to me was, well, first of all, Jesus teaches 2 ways not to pray. And I was doing a lot of that. I realized, upon reflection, doing the work to bring it into...
So there's that, like...
Jesus says there's 2 ways not to pray, and this is how you should pray.
Which is wild. Because there's like a wrong way. Would you say there's a wrong way to pray?
I would never have... Listen, I've studied a lot of Bible. I don't know how... It's so embarrassing how I missed all of this stuff for so long. But Jesus says, don't pray like the Pharisees, which is really giving a spiritual TED talk, looking smart in front of people and praying to be seen.
Yep.
Right. So don't do that. What do pastors do all the time?
Dude, people would come to me when I would lead worship, and they would compliment me on my how on my prayers,
Yeah.
and I that really fed my ego.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird job in that way. And then the other one is praying like a pagan, which is like babbling lots of words, trying to coerce God to do stuff. If I can just get the words right,
You pretty much perfectly described my first 40 years of prayer life.
then I'll be able to trick God into doing it my way.
Wow.
So don't do that. And honest reflection, I'm going, man, like that's a fair share of what I do. And then I realized then Jesus says, this then is how you should pray. And I realized I'd spent my entire life trying to do everything that Jesus describes in the Sermon on the Mount. Like I love Jesus. I believe I'm learning his teachings work, where they make sense to me. You do these things, whether you believe in Jesus or not. Mm-hmm. You live this life, you end up with a better life. But I'd never once taken him seriously at what comes after the words of this then is how you should pray.
Right.
So I just committed then and there that for the next 12 months, I was going to pray the Lord's Prayer exclusively and see what happens and just try and learn.
Okay, so I have to ask you a question. I'm sure you've been asked a million times since you've done this. Just because I know a little bit about your personality, and we have some similar wirings as fellow Enneagram 7s. Praying a prayer for 12 months to me sounds like a prison. Like, it sounds like that's the most boring. Like, I would get 2 days, 3 days in and be like, I can't do it anymore.
Right.
Tell me about that experience for you. Like,
yeah, so what this is like Lord's Prayer is easy enough for like a toddler to memorize it.
Uh-huh.
But when you really get into it, it's enough to keep like a theologian and a deep thinker and engaged for life. And
so you didn't feel bored with it?
No, because what I have found is important is you need to pray each movement, pause, and pray for your thing. So just say I'm praying for, man, our car just broken down. We need help, right? So you start with our Father who's in heaven, which is as close as the air. Like our Father who is close. You begin with that, and I revere your name. Hallowed be your name. And you just stop and you'd pray, before I get to asking for this car repair or whatever I need, you just acknowledge that you have a loving Heavenly Father who is close. I quite often pray in my car like this, and I do this multiple times a day, 2 minutes to 7 minutes, probably.
This kind of framework.
Use the framework and just run each thing through the framework. And so you've got start with this moment, which is pretty healthy, acknowledging that God is close and with me. I've spent a lot of my life imagining God kind of exists in heaven beyond the moon. It's not really where the original language
it's present.
gets.
It's being connected.
It's in the air. Like God is as close as air.
Wow.
So that'll change everything. Also, it's our Father. It's not my Father. It's like it's a communal thing.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about that too, but yeah, keep going.
This had that wrong. So you start there, and then you just keep moving through it. The next thing you do is you submit your will. You go, God, I've got some pretty clear ideas about what I'm going to ask for you next. But ultimately, let's take a moment, acknowledge that you're a higher power, that you have more intelligence than I do, and you actually know what's better for me than I know. But that being said, so I submit, like I'm yours. But then you ask for the thing that you want.
Yep.
And that's really asking for daily bread. That's where my prayers would start and end, really.
Here's what I need.
I'm a genius at asking for stuff. I was good at that, and then being disappointed when it didn't happen. So you've got to submit it. You're close to this Father. You've got the submitted heart, and you're going, hey, I think this is what we're going to need to get through the next day. I think that's an important part of it. I think that's the journey of this year, figuring out the 24-hour piece. Give me today my daily bread.
Right.
Because I pray for stuff beyond that.
Right.
But here's what's wild. Next, you forgive people. So Jesus said every time you pray, you should forgive people and ask for forgiveness. Now, that is a light way to live, meaning that for the last year, I've asked for forgiveness several times a day and forgiven people by name several times a day.
Right.
And that's not how I used to do forgiveness. I used to carry around a bucket of unforgiveness, and when it got too heavy to carry, I would pick out the easiest one just so I could cope with my life. So I've just been walking around and I think Jesus does teach about the forgiveness should be regular and unlimited. So that is, and that's different from reconciliation. You can't always reconcile.
Right.
What I love about the recovery community is if anyone understands that, you guys do.
That's what I'm sitting here thinking, like, this so perfectly matches even the 12 steps of making amends and going back, like all this stuff. And again,
well, I think it's why the 12-step works, because there's something about this prayer that just is aligned with the way the human soul is designed.
It's acknowledging I'm powerless and I need a higher power. Like I mean, you're literally, it's like they go so hand in hand. And I think it's beautiful, but I don't want to interrupt your thread because you're at the provision, the daily bread.
Yeah, then it's leaving not to temptation, which is literally the most difficult phrase to understand ever. Like, is God this loving Father who Jesus is at pains to let us know he's a good Father who wouldn't give a stone when you ask for bread or whatever.
Right.
Lead us not to temptation. So the question is, like, is that seriously what God's doing up there? Like, throwing sin options in front of us and tempting me to do that thing? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Where I'm at with that currently is that my favorite theologians think a better word for it is the test.
Okay.
Like, don't test me beyond what I can handle. So it's a pretty freeing thing to pray out forgiveness. Like, hey, God, don't let me break on this thing. That's really hard.
There's still like a withness to that too. Like it feels more connected than like the lead me not into temptation. The way I interpret it feels different than what you just said, because that is more of like, God, would you be with me through this day? Because I'm going to hit things that are going to cause me to maybe, or in our world, we talk about triggers.
Yeah, help me pass the test.
Help me pass that. When I pass that liquor store,
Yeah.
I'm going to be tempted. I need your help to keep driving.
So that works. And then you finish with spiritual warfare, which as a Methodist, I never prayed for that. So every prayer now finishes with, there's an enemy. I'm acknowledging that even on my best day could take me out.
Yeah.
Even if I'm on a bit of a roll, making a ton of good decisions, maybe he could take me out. So I'm just like, you're praying for spiritual protection.
Wow.
And then it's amen. And so, it's several times a day, 1 minute through probably rarely more than 10. And use it as a framework. And because of the framework, it actually never gets boring. That's the surprise twist.
Well, I was going to mention, I didn't think about this, but you've been posting on Instagram, and I've got this love-hate, mostly hate relationship with Instagram, but I think you're redeeming it in a really beautiful way, because you're actually posting examples of how this prayer works in a lot of different scenarios. So I'm going to link to that because I want people to go and follow along, because you're actually showing how it doesn't get boring, because you're applying it to very specific situations. It could be Mother's Day, it could be whatever.
So you're praying for Mother's Day, right?
Uh-huh.
You think about everything that happens there. You end up asking God for forgiveness on how you've treated your own mother. And then you also spend some time forgiving your own mother. There's not a lot of that going on in our cultural moment. There's a lot of, we're holding our parents accountable for emotional language, trauma that they never even talked about.
Right. Our parents are like, we're doing the best we could.
Yeah. But we're not celebrating the resilience that they taught us and any of that as well.
It does reframe it.
Yeah, so you're forgiving them, and then it just seems to work.
Do you ever pray anything other than this now?
Yeah, I mean, so basically, I use the framework to, because one thing that's sort of missing there is gratitude. You've kind of got to catch it in the opening part of it, because most of our prayers begin, God, thank you for today.
Yeah,
I didn't naturally get there, so I kind of just add in some gratitude usually. But no, I mean, this morning already, I've prayed this twice, and it tends to really just help.
So the framework keeps it to where that you're aligning with how Jesus taught us to pray, and because that's what I'm sitting here thinking. Because I ordered the book. If I'd known it was going to do so well, I probably wouldn't have. I was just trying to support a poor, starving author friend.
I appreciate.
No, I'm just kidding. I need this. I desperately need this. When you came out, and I want to ask you about this, because when you came out and said what you said about, I suck at prayer, my paraphrase, but I'm not good at it. I needed it. I need to lead my church through it. And so I did this, and based on a year of experience, I wrote this book, right? That really hit me in a profound way, because here I am, former pastor. Right. Also I feel very connected to God right now in my spirituality. Yeah. And my definition of prayer has changed from what it used to be. But I don't have a discipline I should not say a discipline, but a pathway of connecting with God outside of, God, I know you exist, I know you're there, and I experience you in nature and all the different things.
Yeah, it's a little haphazard.
Very haphazard.
Right.
There's no... So when you said this, what gave you, and this is maybe a little personal and you don't have to answer it, but what gave you the psychological safety as a pastor at a prominent, growing, and I would say large church in the heart of downtown Nashville to say, hey guys, I'm not very good at this? That right there alone was impactful for me. Yes, I'm not... I often have remorse after I say these things in the front of a room. I am learning.
Do you regret saying it?
I learned a long time ago. Me telling my heroic stories of faith doesn't really help the room, nor does it move the room.
Yeah.
What helps people, and I think we're in a unique cultural moment where people hearing from guys with
folks with my job title that we're not perfect, I think is exactly kind of what people need.
You either say it or eventually you prove it.
It becomes clear. So, and I also, like, I've never wanted, I came to pastoring a bit later than some other people. Like, I was 38 before I kind of held the responsibility of leading a church. And so I had my point, and I'd paid attention, like I was in the church space since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I paid attention to how this whole thing could fall apart. It felt like honesty and vulnerability was really important part of that. I have learned to trust the power of being honest, but also what you can't do is you can't just be like, man, I suck at prayer and not do something about it. That doesn't work either.
I guess by the time you confess it, you had already done a year's worth of, like, you weren't saying I'm currently terrible at it. It was, I was wrestling this in.
What's unique about this job is you've got to guide people. And so you can't go fully like, man, I'm just bad at all these things. What does help people is you can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
But also going, I've also solved the problem that you still have.
Yes.
And this accidentally achieved all of that.
I love that. It reminded me, I was in therapy with, it was a therapist, doesn't matter who it was, but we were going, and something, I had an aha moment.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, hey, don't preach about this on Sunday.
Right.
Similar idea.
Right.
Like, hey, you just learned this. You haven't used it yet. I know you think this is awesome and you want to share it, which I do. I mean, it's powerful, but I think that was his point. Like, why don't you live with this for a while before you preach it? And that's what you did with this.
Well, it just takes a while for this stuff to take. I'm a big advocate of, one of the ways to follow Jesus without Jesus being here is like, how do you be close with Jesus? Because basically Jesus says that's the way to like flourish as a follower of Jesus is he uses this vine and the branches metaphor. Like, you've got to abide, you've got to stay close.
Yep.
How do you do that? So through spiritual practices, and I've learned I can only add in one at a time.
Okay.
And it's a bit like, we've all got these weird friends who love CrossFit, right? Like, they get up at 4 a.m. and they love it. But you know what is true? They didn't love it for the first month.
Okay.
But they're not going 3 years later because they hate it.
Right.
It fills them with joy.
But it took them some time.
Yeah. And so I feel the same thing with prayer. Sabbath, taking a whole day off work is a really hard thing to do. First 4 times. So I took a year to learn how to Sabbath as well.
Before this?
Yeah, ages ago, because I was burning out and having panic attacks because I had to
and you're working on
come
most
up with
people's
a sermon.
Sabbath, right?
Yeah,
So
all that stuff. So, but I have found you go when you add in a practice. What most people do is add in a million things and fail in 3 days. What I found is you add in one practice, you commit to it till it fills you with joy and you want to do it.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's just it's not a hard thing to do anymore. And so prayer has become that for me.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to, if you jump in on this, you're gonna have to fight through it for a little bit.
Really?
Just be like super committed to it you got to get super committed to it as an idea that obviously this is gonna help.
Yeah.
And then just expect to feel like you would if you were gonna start CrossFit tomhow as well. Like that feeling of like, I don't want to put my shoes on.
Yeah. Well, it's so simple though. You're not calling people to this, hour and a half of intense prayer. I mean, I think that was part of my challenge with prayer growing up was I just didn't feel like I had the spiritual stamina for it. Like I would see these people like, we're going to go pray for an hour. And I'm like, golly, after 2 or 3 minutes, I'm just tapped. I've prayed everything I know. I don't know what to do.
Well, you didn't. So, I mean, that's the thing with prayer is you can't do that straight away. Like you've got to pray. I've got a quote in the book. You got to pray as you are, not as you want to be.
Wow. That's really
and so you can be aspirational, but when you're following the heroes of the faith, which is, I think I'm one of the few people to attempt to write a prayer book who's not a hero of the thing, you're writing about. Because sometimes that's what actually...
But I think that's the magic of the
book.
Well,
that's what creates barriers, because you go, man, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Like I've heard some people, who've described their Sabbath that involves cooking food the day before and, not having any TV, and I'm going, man, I don't know if I'm made of that stuff.
Well, even in this conversation already, you've mentioned a couple things that you're still wrestling through in the prayer itself. Like it's not like you've got it. Well, and like you said, theologians have wrestled this prayer for years and years. So it's not like, hey, I've written everything you need to know about this prayer is in this book.
No, I'm still learning, and there's stuff I read it already. Like I missed the whole Our Father insight.
It's funny you brought that up because I want to go back to that. Before I do, I just want to shout out also, because I think it's important, in recovery, similar to church world, like the beauty of what we do, and even staying sober has a lot to do with connection. We always say sobriety is not the opposite of addiction; it's actually connection. So I want to go into the Our Father stuff, but I also want to shout out, Church of the City downtown is a really beautiful community that I think has helped. And I want to hear your words on this, but I think it's a special place that has allowed you to write a book like this, because it's one of the only churches I've ever been to that after you preach, everyone turns their chairs around in a small group and talks about it. And you even encourage them to, hey, if there's something I said that you disagree with or whatever. Like, I don't know many churches of scale that bake into the actual gathering a time of community and conversation and wrestling. And honestly, the times I've been, it's my favorite part. And if I had any feedback, it's too short. Like, we get into it, I'm like, no, they're starting the song. Like, we're like, and it's probably intentionally that way. It makes us want more. But I just wanted to say that I think that's a special part of this book, is the community that's behind it, that you've built there at Church of the City. But on the Our Father thing, one thing that comes up for me, there's the our part that I've always missed too, that you brought out, but especially in recovery, there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of just really weird feelings around dad, father. For a lot of us, that's a big hurdle to just even get into the prayer, is this idea of like, I've just got a really messy relationship with the concept of father or dad or whatever. What are some pastoral insights you would give to the person that's listening or watching who's just like, man, I don't even know if I can get to the rest of the prayer because my relationship with dad is so wonky?
Yeah. For most, I reckon for at least half people, like it's the biggest challenge of this whole thing, where the most of the work is going to have to be done. Like anyone with a substantial father wound or shame about how, a lot of my mates in recovery feel a lot of shame about how they have fathered as well.
Oh,
so
yeah. Both,
it kind of hits you from several levels. I would say it's just important to remember that God is not, when Jesus says to pray to our Father, he's not describing like just a glamorized 10x version of our own dads. He's talking about this father, as you read about the way the father metaphor plays out in Scripture. There's this prodigal son element to it. This is the father who runs to you after you've blown it. Yeah. After you've literally couldn't. In that story is about a kid who hit absolute rock bottom, and there was no coming back from it. Yet the father runs to them. So, my challenge would be, if you've got a painful relationship, if you've got a great relationship with your own dad, you almost have to kind of put that aside, because even if you've got the world's best dad, that's nothing on what God, the Father in heaven,
it's even better,
is like. So I think it may be as simple as going, okay, our Father in heaven, who is nothing like my dad at all, hallowed be thy name. Right. So I think that's an important part of it. But it'd be worthwhile just doing a bit of study on like how the father images. Actually, when there's two metaphors that play out in prayer for Jesus, it's father and friend. So there's this midnight friend as well. So those are the kind of this great friend, the love of a friend and the love of a father. In kind of a perfect sense, are kind of two ways to
that's really helpful, actually, because I'm in the camp of having a great dad. It actually took me a lot of therapy to even try to, I'd say this joke, try to find something wrong with him. Right. I was like, I was defensive of him, because I'm like, man, this guy's an awesome guy, know. But yeah, I think that's really, really helpful. Why do you think, and maybe this is redundant, so we can skip through it, but why do you think it was dad? Like, why not our creator? Why not our king? I
actually have no answers for any of why the Lord's Prayer, like why the 6 things are there,
right?
Except for that, when you dig in and you run it, it works. I think one of Jesus' preferred metaphors for God, and I think that's probably important to remember as well, was Father.
Yeah.
No one back then, no observant Jew in the first century referred to God as Abba. So that's the Hebrew word that we're talking about here.
Are you saying was a relatively new concept that Jesus was introducing?
It's a little bit debated.
Okay.
But my guys that I trust, and I write about this in the book, they think, and it's not father. It's how a little kid. So there's this theologian Joachim Jeremias, and his thing is it's literally what a little Hebrew kid calls their dad. So it's basically daddy, you know.
Wow.
And no, that is not how folks prayed back then.
Right.
And I think actually the use of our Father was probably what the disciples saw, like Abba, you know, Jesus praying Abba, Daddy, that they just looked at it and went, I don't have a category for this. Teach us how to pray. I mean, we've got our mate Chris, you know, he calls God Papa a lot.
Yeah.
And that stuff for me several years ago probably would have been a bit of an eye roll, you know.
Yeah.
Those guys are actually right.
Yeah.
So
there's a level of intimate. Well, and I know this about
it's
Chris.
vulnerability. It's
That's
little kid.
That's right.
Going to
and an understanding. I know some of that stuff can feel performative, and that's why I'd also produce the eye roll in me until you know someone.
We're both pastors' kids as well.
Right. Exactly. But you're exactly right. That speaks to a level of intimacy or a level of understanding of how I actually need to show up. And we talked about this right before we started. My son is wrestling with, you know, some theology stuff, and I don't have good answers for him except for Abba.
Right.
Like and I do know how I feel about my kids.
Right.
You know, you've got 4 kids. Like we understand. Right. And that's the closest I can get to understanding how to approach God is how I'd want my kids to come to me.
Yeah.
You know, and that seems pretty powerful. Can you go a level?
That's almost the whole box of dice right there.
Is it?
Actually, yeah, that's really helpful insight. Yeah.
What about that? And I won't be able to get the book. You'd write about all this, but give us a little teaser even on just the hour part. I want to go back to that a little bit more because, again, in recovery, isolation is the thing that most of us addicts turn to. That is the most damaging thing we can do. And it's the hardest thing. Like I check in with guys every single day about things that I'm wrestling with, and there's never been one time that I've wanted to. You know, so could you unpack the significance around the plurality of that?
Yeah, pronouns matter for some reason in the Lord's Prayer, and it's not my Father. Which Jesus, if anyone could have prayed that, you would have thought that would.
Yeah,
he'd be the guy going, "My." No, it's our Father, and then it's also give us today our daily bread. And so, so it's a real kind of communal thing.
Well, that changes things quite a bit.
Oh, it definitely does, because you know we're usually praying like God, who's living somewhere on the other side of the moon and may care from time to time haphazardly for me.
Right.
I really want a cupcake right now, and could you find me a park close to the front door of the grocery store? Amen. Like that's how most of us pray, and it's these very me and my prayers. I think when you really get into the our Father, and you couch this whole thing in community, there's a lot of power there as well. And also, you know, when we're asking for things for our daily bread, you know, we're not asking.
Yep.
It changes what you're asking for. Because you know, you think about we're living in an incredibly individualistic, hyper-individualistic cultural moment, probably never been seen before in the history of humanity. When we almost read everything like we read our Father, and we process it in our mind as my Father, we go to God as an only child.
That's right. For years, that's what's so crazy about it, and I think that's what's so important about you bring in this light. Is there's simple things like that drastically change. Talk a little bit more about the dependence part, because it changes the provision that I'm looking for. It actually helps me celebrate provision for other people when I realize that I actually should be praying for our communal provision. And again, it's just not to be redundant, but it ties so directly to addiction, because so much of the provision, or let's put it this way, most addicts really struggle with dependence and being dependent even on healthy things. So we end up turning to unhealthy things to be dependent on to get our needs met. Unpack a little bit in that context. Just first of all, why do we struggle so much allowing ourselves to be dependent? And then how is it affecting the way we pray for it to be a plural dependence? Yeah,
well, I think there's just a lot of cultural factors based on the country that you live in, the type of house that you were raised in, where I think definitely, as boys transition from little kids to manhood, it's expected. There's a lot of weight put on ourselves to be responsible, and sometimes the weight of that can be crushing. And I think one of the freeing things about following Jesus and believing in this kind of benevolent creator and massive God who's out there is that ultimately this doesn't actually all rest on my shoulders. And so I think that's an important part of it. When you are praying the Lord's Prayer, so just imagine you're praying about a father wound or something. That part of the plurality that really matters is, so just say, I'm praying for my dad. We don't, and just imagine we have a complicated relationship, and I'm about to see him, and we know that lunch has to happen where we get to the bottom of this thing. When you start praying our Father with your own dad in mind, you start thinking about, okay, so this is how I pray. I say, you are our Father, you're my father, and you're my dad's father. And so you're going to it like he's actually got two kids to take care of in this situation.
Whoa.
And for me, that was a real one of the really massive early learnings, where in any situation, if I'm praying about a broken relationship or something, rather than going, God, smite them, I'm going, you're my father, you're their father. I hate it, but I get that you love us the same and you care equally for both of us. And there may be a different point of view.
Yeah. Wow.
That they are coming to you. If they're praying at the same moment, they're hitting us from an entirely different angle, hoping for an entirely different outcome.
Yeah.
It's a mind-blowing.
That just messed with my brain, because, I mean, that reframe alone, I mean, even when it comes to the forgiveness part, where you're talking about confronting people and situations, everything else, about how it puts you way more shoulder to shoulder than at each other.
Right.
I mean...
And then give us today what we need to get through this, and start praying for the next 24 hours that just me and Dad, that me and my earthly Father will give us what we need. And what could that be? Maybe it might just be that rather than getting straight to reconciliation, we need to have a lunch where we just don't yell at each other. But maybe that's what we're asking for.
But here's the game changer. In almost every relationship, my approach has been, what do I need from this relationship? Not what do we need from God.
What is the win-win? So that praying our Father sets you up for kind of win-win prayers, which is that's not how TikTok's teaching us how to live.
Does that mean embracing sometimes the provision is not what we gain personally?
Unanswered prayer becomes a lot less disappointing when you pray this way.
Okay.
Because you're acknowledging, like, you're submitting your will, and you're just going, you know what? You're smarter than me.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna ask for this anyway because you seem to want to engage. Dallas Willard's got a great quote about prayer. It's like humans and God talking about matters of mutual concern. Like, that's what this is. There's something about it that even though God knows what's best, that he wants the intimacy of us chatting with him. Much like when you know what your kid needs, you still want them to ask you for it. There's some intimacy in that in that relationship. You want your kids coming to you with how they need your help. Yeah, and I think that all plays out.
Let's just for fun. Let's. I want to do a couple little role play things here, and this is kind of throwing a curveball at you, but I want you to, if you're willing, because you've been doing this so well online. Could you help walk through a couple scenarios, like how you would pray this prayer? Yeah. And let's start with someone with a process addiction. Let's just start with someone like gambling.
Okay.
You've got someone who is is really struggling, chasing losses, wants to be connected with God, wants to pray, feels a lot of shame, doesn't know where to start, deep in the hole, has to have some hard conversations with wife, family, whatever. And they're saying, Pastor Matt, how do I apply this prayer to my situation? Do you feel comfortable? Like, could you walk us through how that person should pray this prayer?
I can. Let me give it a crack. I would pray, and this is actually the benefit in committing to a process like this is right. It's kind of easy when you do something for a year. So I would be like, our Father who is close. And I would just take a moment and I would pause there and I would go, and I would just think about that. I'd be like, man, I'm feeling all kinds of shame. I'm about to reveal something to my wife that may actually end us, and she doesn't know about this. And I'm feeling very alone. But you're our father. You're my father. You're my wife's father. You're my kid's father. All the people who are about to realize we don't have money anymore. You're our dad, and you're close. And you care for me, and you're the type of dad who runs for me when I make mistakes like this. And then hallowed be thy name is basically just saying, I honor you, I revere you. And you just spend a little bit of time there. And
You recommend even pausing in that place for like...
Yeah, just pause. You use your own words. Really important to pray what you got. John Tyson,
Yeah.
it's kind of his famous quote on this. Like you don't, this is not about big words or anything. That's Pharisee and pagan stuff. You talk like you talk.
Yeah.
It's a conversation. Yeah, just revere your name. I maybe on this one I'd race past that. You usually tend to find yourself camped out somewhere.
Okay.
I think if the first time you're praying this prayer, I think you'd probably camp out at the Our Father bit and just kind of I think it'd be a bit of a healing start. Just going, all of this doesn't weigh on me, and I'm coming to a wise being who loves me, and that starts in a pretty healthy way. Hallowed be thy name. And then you're saying, would your kingdom come? So I am asking that the way that you designed the world to be would be more true in my life.
Wow.
And would your will be done in this situation as it is in heaven? It's basically like saying, would your will be done?
That's a surrender pose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Posture
exactly.
of surrender.
Yeah, like I don't know what to do. I'm going to actually pray for something next, but ultimately I'm saying, please do things your way because I'm drowning here. Your will be done. So you surrender your will. And then you give us today our daily bread. And so then you'd be praying for something very specific that you wanted. I think it would be something like, I need to tell my wife that we can't pay for the kids' school. And I've done all this in secret, and it's got out of control in the last 3 months. And I need to have this conversation with her. Would you give me, and would you give us the peace? Would you give me the bravery to have this conversation? Because you're thinking about the next 24 hours, really. That's what you need for today.
Right.
Give me the courage, and I ask for when I don't know what to say, would you give me wisdom? I think I'd probably be praying, would you help me not make this worse?
Wow.
And if I'm like, because I know I'm pretty good with words, I might lean on that more heavily. I might pray, God, I am tempted to technique my wife, and I know how to do that. Would you help me be fully honest? Or something like that.
Help me not manipulate and gas. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, and what's interesting is at this point, you're not really praying for the $32,000 because that's probably what you would be praying for.
Right.
Normally, without this prayer,
You're trying to fix
God,
that.
I need $32,000, and I'm going to put it all on red. Help me.
Right.
And then, shocker, it will be black.
That's right.
100% of the time.
That's right.
Give us today our daily bread. Forgive me. Forgive me for this. And you would just spend some time there. I think it's kind of helpful to name something very specific.
Yeah.
Like, forgive me that this is happening because of whatever, that decision I made back then. Would you forgive me? And you own it. And then you would find someone else to forgive along the way. And quite often it's like, a family member or something that happened to you back in the day that kind of put this bent in you. Like, I just, as you're processing something like, as I am walking towards this horrible conversation I have to have with my wife, something triggered over here, and I need to forgive Kevin for that time that thing happened. So something like that. Lead us not temptation. Like, don't let this break me. Don't let this break us.
Yeah.
And then you get into spiritual warfare, and you're just saying, this thing is so dark that it's hard for me to make sense of it without that there's an enemy out there coming to steal, kill, and destroy our family. and I'm asking for your protection. That you would help me stand. In spiritual warfare, the main passage on it, Paul uses the word stand all the time. It's not really about going on offense. It's like, and then stand, and then stand. You know, sword of the Spirit is about the only weapon you get, which is truth.
Yeah.
So truth is the weapon, and the rest of the kind of spiritual protection we get is also that we can stand in that moment. And then you just,
Jeez, man.
amen. Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's so good. All right. Can we do another one?
Yeah.
Because I think that's so helpful. Because we have so many betrayed partners.
Yep.
Family members. And when I say betrayed, it could be a spouse, but it
kind
also
of Al-Anon community more, that side of it.
A lot of people listen to this podcast are on that side of it where they've got someone and they're trying to heal.
Yep.
What is someone who is feeling betrayed, hurt? How do they word this prayer? How do they go into this
Are you
prayer?
guessing there's more women praying this prayer than men on this
In our
podcast?
context, for sure, because we're a men's program, but
Yeah, let's go with that. So let's just pretend it's
a spouse who's been
a spouse named
betrayed.
Mary praying for her husband, Matt.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. I think Mary, one way to go about it would be for Mary to pray, our Father, you're my dad, you're Matt's dad. We need you. We need you to do your dad thing and love us and fix this thing. And I'm glad that you're close. Help me feel you. Like I want to feel your presence in this because I'm just so hurt and so sad. I don't know if I want to do this anymore, you know. But you're our Father, and I know you care for him as much as you care for me. And I think it's fine to be honest. I'll be like, the truth is I hate him right now.
Yeah.
You know, I hate him.
Yeah.
Hate what he's done to us. But you're our dad, and we come to you. I'm coming to you with this. And I just take a moment and revere you and just say, you're good. You're good, and I need to trust that right now. And I'm going to need that from you. Your kingdom come, your will be done. You say, I'm about to ask for something very specific about what's coming next. But I ultimately acknowledge that you are way smarter than me, and you actually see the pathway here. You see the win-win. And I'm praying for that. I pray that your will be done, and I understand that it may not be where my thinking is at right now. Give us today our daily bread. And so then you're praying for a very specific thing that's going to happen that day. So I pray for this conversation as we go into therapy today. It hasn't gone well. I keep getting angry at my therapist because they keep kind of putting some of this on me.
Right.
If there's any wisdom in what they're doing, would you help me see that? Would you help me own my piece of this? Give me that. Be with us in this session that's coming up at 2 p.m. But I pray that we might actually walk out of there today net positive somehow.
Yeah.
And I don't see a pathway there.
Right.
Okay. And then you're praying for forgiveness. So forgive. I think that's probably easy for most people. But you're asking God to forgive you. Like I feel very validated in the hatred and disgust that I have in my chest right now. And it's killing me. And I want you to help me with that. Would you help me? Would you forgive me for the toxic anger? Not all anger is bad, but toxic anger is, it's not a recipe for flourishing. Would you forgive me for my toxic anger? Something like that.
That's good.
Maybe. Yep. And then I think Mary's probably forgiving Matt in that moment. And I forgive him for what he has done. And you're setting him free. This is hard work. You're setting him free from the moral debt that he owes me. Now, Jesus says, no matter what it is in one of his parables, it's unlimited and regular. And you're probably praying this same prayer all the time.
Right.
But it's lightening your load.
Probably before you feel it.
And real forgiveness, really, part of it is just, you're finding ways for this not to be always, and sometimes it takes years, but in relationships that have been upended like this, you have to find a way to not always bring it up for the rest of your life. You can't do that. So, and it's just going to be this daily 70 times 7 was Jesus math, unlimited forgiveness.
Right.
Now, doesn't mean you're not careful with some boundaries and all of that.
Yeah.
But there's forgiveness there. Lead us not temptation, like lead us, just help us pass this test that's coming up.
Yeah.
And help me in this therapy session. And then you just go into the spiritual warfare bit. You're just like, I acknowledge that we are under attack. Like this whole thing, it's hard to explain without there being some coordinated attack. This is bigger than just a series of bad luck. Feels like for some reason the enemy's trying to take us down. I pray for protection on my mind, on my heart. Pray that for my kids. Pray that you'll give me thick skin and a soft heart. But would you protect our family?
Yeah.
Help us get through this. Amen.
Ooh.
Something like that.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like even in this moment, I feel like, I mean, I realize that you're saying a prayer is practical, helpful, but even as you're saying it, I feel the nearness of God in that scenario, because it's not hard for me to imagine someone praying that, and it's very real, and it's just the power of this prayer, this framework, when you say it out loud. I mean, even what it's doing in my soul as you're going through these scenarios, it's transformative. I'm like, golly, I see things different. This could be a very like cookie cutter question, but I do want to know, like, your hope, your prayer for this. It's newly released. It's doing really well. It's going to get in the hands of a lot of people. Just the heart behind the author. What's your hope and prayer for this?
The biggest risk we took is on the back page of it. It says, that used to say, at the very top, used to say, one man, one prayer that changed it all. Like it was a bit Lord of the Rings.
One man.
At the very last minute, what is it? What's the top line? What does it say?
A book for people who aren't very good at prayer?
Yeah. So I felt like that was the biggest risk that we took.
I am learning. Your biggest struggle to your greatest joy.
I'm learning there's a lot of people who love Jesus and don't really know how to pray. And it's because we've settled for less powerful prayers than this.
Okay.
It's God, thank you for today. And so my hope is like what you just, what you're describing, what you experienced just then. If we grasp this is a game changer for our faith. We do all sorts of praying in our lives and at churches, and hardly any of us pray like this. So I feel like there's just been this great secret of the soul hidden to so many of us, and I'm grateful that I kind of stumbled into it. Well, I'm hearing stories of people reading this book on planes and other nervous flyers. This is what happened last week. Saying, "Are you a prayer person? I'm about to meet with my sister. I'm on this flight to have this conversation that could go either way," and it's been wild. And so I think if we pray this way, we're living a life more aligned with Jesus.
Well, I was going to mention that you put that on the cover. Realigns everything: our thoughts, our hearts, and what I love is our posture. Because as you did those examples, the realigning of our posture towards God and the world. Yeah. is huge. So this is everywhere. This is on Amazon, but it's in Barnes and Noble, it's in bookstores. You can go pick it up anywhere. Thank you for just what it took to get to this. I mean, thank you for your honesty and for like your willingness to go there first, and then the work it took to, amidst being a busy pastor, putting this down. What's your final parting words for us today on this?
I do want to say, if you're not much of a reader, and that is it's a thing. Like I have a lot of friends who don't read.
Right.
There's an Audible as well.
Oh, perfect. Is it you or
sexy Australian accent? It's like 4 hours. So it's
Did
very,
you enunciate so we can actually understand?
I got my thises and that's mixed up.
Okay.
And I say assume, as you know. I assume you're wrong. And the dude on the screen on the other side.
Did he make you change it?
He was like, "Oh, that was weird." And I said, "That's how we say it." And he's like, "Not for this, it isn't." So every time you hear me say assume.
Yeah, you had to work hard at that.
Very neutral American. Just know that was 3 takes to get that right. What was your question?
My question is just what would you want to leave people with? What's kind of your final thought?
I think if you're unsatisfied with your prayer life, a couple of things. Folks in recovery, I want you to know you're my heroes. Like the people who really get into recovery in church, they kind of go from your most difficult friends to the greatest people you've ever met. And I'm 48 now. All of our friends got divorced around the age of 42. A lot of it was recovery. You'd find out later. You wouldn't find out straight away, but with time, that suddenly they have this whole new group of friends that they can't tell you about. Where are you going? Oh, just off to a hang with some guys. That's how naive I am. I say, could I come? No, you can't. If you stick with this and you do the 12 steps, it is the greatest thing ever. And then I would just say, my encouragement as a pastor would be take some of it bravely. I would encourage you to really weigh taking some of the mystery out of the higher power language, and see. And I think you've got to do the work figuring out whether that's Jesus or not. I think there's real power in that becoming more specific. And if that's the case, Jesus says to pray this way. And I would maybe just try it on, give it a crack for a month, and just use it as a framework. Most of us Americans anyway, you guys pray, know this one, it's kind of deeply ingrained. So I would, that would be my hope. But I, keep pursuing healing. We're never too far gone. And the God of the Bible is running towards you, even if that seems unimaginable. Jesus was at pains to tell us that. So good luck on your journey, cheering you on. And I think I'll say, if life is really dark, you're not as far away as you think. Probably 30, 60 or 90 days away from some serious light breaking in. So good luck.